welcome to D-ConneXion TV. My name is Donzale Powell with D-ConneX LLC. Today we're going to be speaking about real estate and also property management. I'm very excited to have our guests here today, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves. We'll start with you.
Hi, my name is Marquisa Beasley, and I am a realtor with Benchmark Realty, and I am from Nashville.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Shauna Mason, and I am with the Ashton Group with Remax Advantage, and we're out of Nashville, too.
I'm TJ Ojahoman. I'm Director of Business Development and Licensed Real Estate Agent with the Property Management Connection here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Wow, thank you so much for coming today. Again, just so that we can kind of open up conversation, let's start with, in your professional opinions, what are some of the very first steps when it comes to home buying and that process? Any thoughts on that?
You want me to take this one?
Sure.
Okay. Well, for me, what I tell my potential clients, the first step is to get pre-qualified. I want to know that you're pre-qualified before you even start working with me. If you're not pre-qualified, I can't, really help you. So the first step to me would be to get you over to a lender to see how much you qualify for, and then I'll come in and take it over from there.
So kind of giving at least a rough estimate, okay, here's what we're working with, and then you can kind of, that helps you determine which route you can
Yeah, because if I don't know how much you pre-qualify for, I don't know where you can go.
Right.
So, yeah, talking to a lender would be the first step.
Right.
I'd probably go back even before that, in today's society where, we have, dozens of social media platforms that communicate a lot of different messages, articles, opinions. It's, a lot of people have a preconceived notion of what home buying looks like. Henceforth, I see a lot of people paralyze themselves and say, I'm not ready. My first step would be have a conversation with a professional agent. I do a lot of financial literacy coaching, as well as very passionate about real estate. And before I can even tell folks, hey, you need to buy or you don't, first let's have a conversation. Let's see if you can afford it. Let's help you understand the power of buying real estate. It's not just replacing rent, right? So really helping folks set the mind frame so that they can get in preparation, because sometimes you may need 6 to 12 months before you get ready, but you won't know what to do until you have a conversation with a professional, not all these people with opinions.
Right, right. Well, speaking of education, and we'll circle back around to that, I do think that's a very important piece. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And so kind of working through that can be helpful for people, and they might be pleasantly surprised to find out what's going on. Any thoughts on that, Shauna?
I say the same thing, to contact a lender just to find out, where you are. I mean, and to know what your monthly payment is going to be, because you might think that, you can only afford a house for $300, but then when you see what that monthly payment is, then you realize where you need to be, or vice versa. You may think that you can afford a house for $350, but you don't want to pay that house payment, and you don't want to look at homes that you don't want to fall in love with a home that you can't buy.
Right.
cannot
Oh,
buy.
yes. That can be devastating.
Yes,
I'm sure.
Or when the lender says, hey, I can get you 400, and you're like, hey, he said I'm pre-qualified for 400. And I'm like, no, your payment, that's not you're not going to take the whole amount, So,
Right.
so yeah.
Yes, makes sense. So when determining if someone is kind of ready to buy, when we start talking about that, are there some basic tips regarding credit score? I know credit can be very scary for people. Sometimes they're already trying to rebuild or trying to get to a certain place. Any thoughts on how to best approach credit score and what some of the things are when making that determination?
Well, I guess I can. Well, this is, and I can speak for me. I always say the higher your score, the better, because you're going to get a better interest rate. But there are some lenders that may do financing as low as 580. Some of the home down payment assistance programs start at 620. Between 620 and 640. So the higher the score, the better. But if your score is a little lower, there's a possibility that you can get financing as well. But if you want the better rate, just say if you want to go conventional and not pay mortgage insurance and things like that, the higher your score, the better situation you'll be in, to me.
Right.
Yeah, I would tell folks to protect their score, right? Especially if you're not having that transition yet. Things as simple as, let's say, for instance, you had a disagreement with Comcast about $100. right? Well, you told Comcast, I'm not paying y'all nothing. And you showed them, right? But the problem is Comcast has a little more power than you. They're going to go file that on a collections report. And that's then going to hit your credit, which will then cause derogatory issues. So when you're not paying bills, also when you're late on bills, anytime you're 30 days late, that's a derogatory hit. So knowing what your student loans are doing, making sure you're keeping up with the bills that you do have. And also, too, I would tell folks, I've seen in this market where a lot of folks are maybe struggling with high levels of debt, the first thing they think to do is, let me file bankruptcy. That is a last resort. Don't jump on that, because that can hinder you for years and years and years. You can make arrangements or settle things with collectors first. But the key thing that most lenders look for on a credit report is that you have 3 active trade lines that are in good standing, minimum about 12 months. That's what a large percentage of them look like or look at. So as long as you're in that space and just protect what you currently have going on, in about 12 months' time, if you hadn't had any credit even to start with, you can get yourself in a home. I would also tell folks, too, one misconception is if I don't have any credit, I can't get a home. There's a process called manual underwriting. Not bad credit, but no credit, right? Maybe you've never had debt before. Manual underwriting will allow them to go and look at utility bills. They'll be able to compose kind of their own credit file and then be able to approve you that way. Also, one thing I just found out is that I think it's Experian. Experian now has it to where you can report your utility bills and boost your credit on their report. So if you're kind of in that middle ground, that 580 or that, great way to just file that, start reporting your utilities, and that can start boosting your credit up over time too.
Awesome. So when you talk about 12 months, 12 months can go like that.
Yep.
So that means even though you might be a little disappointed, maybe you're not ready right now, get some things in order, really do your due diligence is what it sounds like,
Right.
and making sure all your credit report is correct. You followed up with everything that needs to happen, and then make those steps in order to try to boost your score as much as you can over that period of time.
Yep.
Great.
And just even if you have a credit score, your debt to income ratio, keeping that debt low. So just a few basic things: have stable work history, keep your credit together, and keep your debt to income ratio low. Because I know people that have high credit scores, and they pay their bills on time, but they have a lot of debt as well. So it's a few things that a lender, to me, will take,
balance.
they take into consideration when they're trying to pre-qualify you.
I always tell my clients too that it is good to talk to a lender and to talk to them about your credit score, because you don't want to start paying a bunch of things off either, because like he just said, TJ said, you need those trade lines. So if you start paying everything off, they want to see that you can, on a regular basis, pay your bills on time.
Right, right. Okay, good information. Thank you. So give me, kind of explain the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market, and then your personal opinions on which one you think the Nashville area is going through.
You want to go first?
Sure. Okay. So, a buyer's market is when we have more sellers on the market than buyers, and then a seller's market is the opposite. So if we have not as many homes on the market but an influx of buyers, then we're in a buyer's market, in the seller's market. Nashville, we have a lot of people moving here on a regular basis, and the number has gone down a little bit, but I feel like in a certain price point, we are still in a seller's market. When you start getting into those higher numbers, the higher threes, then it does flatten out a little bit, but sellers still don't have to give it all away. I mean, you can still negotiate, and you can still get closer to what you want for your home if you're in an area that is still desirable area.
Good.
And I agree with Shauna with that, because if you're in Nashville and Shauna said her price point may be $275 and lower, but if you're high 190 something or mid two somethings, hey, you can sell it. You might even get in the bidding war, with it. But Nashville, I still agree. Sellers, it's kind of a seller's market. Everybody wants to kind of live close to Nashville. In different areas, the further that you go out, you may see more, more buyers. Sellers maybe the houses may sit on the market a little bit longer, you know, and buyers may be able to get a little bit more assistance. But in Nashville, it's definitely, if it hits the market and it's priced at an affordable price, it's gonna go.
Yeah. Now, let me give confidence to you buyers out there, right? So, yes, I think kind of going back to that statement is, you know, sellers really do. We're kind of more in a market now to where you have to really price your home correctly. A couple of years ago in Nashville, you could throw a price on anything, and folks were lining about the door because there was just not a ton of good inventory everywhere, right? So now builders are putting a lot more things out there. Sellers are starting to look at relocation options, et cetera. But for buyers, we are really seeing that there are opportunities where more of those lower price homes are coming up on the market. And then also there are sellers that from the jump, they're motivated. So they may have to get out of town. They may have had a transition or somebody's sick in another state. And so sometimes you got those opportunities to negotiate, hey, you know, can I get $4,000 closing costs, or can you give me a budget to redo paint? Something similar. So I don't want buyers to still be scared like, oh, there's nothing on the market. Again, Zillow doesn't have everything. Come talk to your local professional agent and see what's out there, because we can show you some things like, hey, I've got some, based on what your lender has told you and based on some things I'm seeing in your criteria, I can do some negotiation on your behalf with these sellers to see if we can get some deals done to get you in your first home in 2020.
Awesome, awesome. So sounds like a lot of supply and demand is just going on. So you're that's pretty much what it boils down to. Now, some of the other hot areas that I've heard about picking up, of course, we talked a lot in Clarksville. Now I'm hearing much more in Murfreesboro. A lot of those outskirt places where people are willing to make that commute in order to get possibly a bigger home, more land, things like that, a little bit more affordable. So yeah, good to know that supply and demand is in different areas, and just making that decision. Is it worth it? Is it worth, you know, being a little further, or is it, I want to be right downtown and I want to be smack dab in the middle of everything? So great.
Definitely.
So what are some options when someone doesn't necessarily have that large down payment? What are some of your suggestions or avenues for helping that person?
Well, me personally, I deal with lenders that can basically do everything. All lenders cannot do every type of loan. So if you know that your client may possibly be a first-time home buyer or do not have a large down payment, then try to figure out what type of program and what lender may have a program that may be beneficial for them. So the lender that I use, she does about every down payment assistance program. And if that didn't work, that she has her own in-house 100% down payment program as well. So to me, I would direct them to a lender that has a lot of options available for them. So we can work it out.
Yeah, veterans can usually get, I think, 100% in most cases. There's also a program based in Tennessee called THDA, where they do provide a budget towards all your down payment costs. And then sometimes you can also ask the seller for some of those costs as well, just depending on what the situation is. But one thing I would say is, a home is a very valuable asset, so I don't want you to be house poor going out. We don't want you to have $0 in your account. We want to work and save a little bit to make sure we've got something. But if it doesn't work out quite that way, like Ms. Beasley said, there's a lot of opportunities out there with working with different lenders in different situations.
There are also, if you go into the more rural areas, there's rural development loans that are 0% down. So that's why those areas sometimes are more attractive for people.
Okay.
So you can do that as well with 0%.
Okay.
The key is to get a lender that's going to take their time with you, and have the programs, because every lender, you may have one lender that may only do THDA. They may not do housing fund, or there's another program, I forget the name. So get with a lender that can do
American Dream program.
Yeah, American Dream program and stuff. So get with the lender, or I would send my clients to a lender that I know that has access to those programs and funds.
So tell us about earnest money, and do people really have to have it? What is it, and what tell us about it?
So Earnest money is now called trust money. So they've changed the name. So with trust money, you put that you when you make the offer, you put that you're going to put a specific amount of trust money down, and that trust money has to be given either to the title company or the real estate company to hold that money. Now, if you you do get that money back if your contingencies are not met. So if your financing does not work out, if your home inspection does not go well, if the home does not appraise, then you do get that money back. Now, if you do not perform, then the seller has a right to keep that trust money. If you do not agree to turn that money over to them, then it would have to go to arbitration, to court. So a lot of sellers feel that it's more attractive the more trust money that you put down on the property. So if you're in a multiple offer situation and you have the ability to put down more trust money, then I would, to show that you are more serious about that property.
Right, really showing
And
they want it.
and to answer your question as far as does it have to be done, well, I know some realtors that will submit it, and I've seen zero down there. But to me, if I'm the listing agent representing my sellers, it's just, like she said, more attractive, and it lets the seller know that you're serious and that you're going to put this, why should I take my house off the market and you're not giving me anything, So it's definitely more attractive to have, the earnest money.
Right, and just in my personal opinion, if someone's really ready to purchase a home and take on that level of responsibility, you kind of need to be ready to make payments like that when necessary, because at any given time, you kind of never know what could possibly happen, and be responsible.
Totally agree with you.
All right, so if someone is interested in purchasing rental properties, what are some suggestions to help them start?
Well, so at Property Management Connection, we deal with investors and rental properties on a day-to-day basis, and those are our constant conversations. I would tell you, one of the easiest ways to get into having rental properties is buy your first home. The reason why is because so when I am able to buy a home that I'm going to occupy, owner-occupied property, I usually have to work with the bank, and I only have to put anywhere from 3 to 5% down. When you buy your first investment property, and you've never bought property before, banks typically want what's called a higher loan to value, or a lower loan to value on it. And so they will usually want 20 to 25% down. It costs a lot more to get into the game if you haven't owned your first home. When you buy your first home, you can typically leave, and if you decide, hey, I can either sell this or make some money off of by renting it out, that's a great strategy to start. One key thing I think a lot of people don't know as well is that you can buy a multifamily property up to 4 units, called a quadplex. And you can buy that with an FHA loan at 3.5% down, as long as you occupy one of the units, right? And so a lot of people don't know that. So you can buy 4 apartments, essentially, live in one, rent out the other 3. The other 3 pay your mortgage plus probably a little income. And when you move out in about 2 to 3 years, you can then keep that property, and bam, you've got a quadplex from your first purchase with about 3.5% down. But if you're more traditional, you're saying, hey, listen, I've got a home, I want to stay in my home, but I want to really get out here. This is where you can look at several different strategies of acquisition, whether it be you pull out a home equity line of credit to make a down payment on a new purchase. You could refinance and cash out and pull some equity out. Or I've seen some folks, they've got so much equity in their first home, they sell it. They've got enough money to buy a new one for themselves and put down payments on other properties. So it just depends. There's a lot of different strategies, but I'd be happy to talk to anybody about different ways to do that.
Wow.
And then just to add to that, do your research, whether, you already own a home, or if you're just wanting to, invest in a home. Then I'm a numbers person, and it has to make sense.
Right.
So, if you're in North Nashville or East Nashville, whatever, and you're purchasing this home, I know some people use Rent-O-Meter, or they may call a property management company, or just whatever. Are you going to get the money back, that you put in the home, So, you have to do a lot of research before you get into that. Get your financing together. Some people are 15% down, 20% down, or whatever. But overall, is it going to be profitable for profitable for you? Is it an upcoming neighborhood can you grow? You know, you're starting at 1,500 now. Would you eventually make, 2,000 or whatever? So I tell a lot of people, just can't come and say, I want to be an investor. I want to flip houses. I want to do this. You have to do your research and look at your numbers.
Right.
I would tell you, that's a great point because we see a lot of people make bad purchases. They think they've got a great prop. Everybody kind of has sentimental value sometimes with their property. And so, oh, this is such a great home. I've got hardwood floors. Nobody else has hardwood floors in this entire city. So therefore, I want to be able to charge it for whatever price point I want. It doesn't work like that. And you can take a lot of big losses. I helped one investor probably, he lost about $20,000 to $25,000 before he got over to us because he was just in a bad deal. That is one of those things. Yeah, you can't just buy anything and say I'm gonna rent it out and it's gonna make sense. Right. You do have to really know some calculations behind that. And smart investors take a look at the deep dive, not just the surface level feeling.
And you also have to make sure too, if you're buying a home, a rental property, if you're buying an HOA, will they allow rentals? To do the research on the back end like that. And also back to buying your first home and then renting that out. Make sure that you read your loan documents and that some of these loans will not allow you to rent your property out. And if they do find out that you've rented your property out, if you change your address so they could send the mortgage payment to your new address, they will foreclose on your property.
Wow. And a lot of the down payment assistance programs, they're not allowed to be rental properties. So you do, that's a good point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, great information. Thank you. So just one more thing I definitely want to cover on the rental properties. So are there any, precautions that people need to have or kind of take when choosing a quality property management company to assist in that process? Because a lot of people, again, they might see the glitz and glamour. They're like, oh, this is something that I want to do. But when you're really trying to factor in what's the best company that's going to, of course, they're in it to make money as well, but they're still going to try to look out for me as, someone that's not as educated in this area. What's your suggestions?
Yeah, I would definitely say, first off, not all property managers are created equal. There are different setups.
Yeah.
You have a lot of realtors who don't really have as much experience, but they'll go ahead and be a manager for you so they can get some monthly income between their sales, which can be dangerous. They also don't have a lot of insurance protections around that. You also have some guys that are just getting started and they've got the cheapest rate in town. So you run over to them, but they don't have a lot of value nor a lot of experience. And so one thing I would definitely make sure is that you've got a professional manager that, number one, can do everything and that has proven they can do everything through maybe some other processes that they've already implemented. Our team specifically, we manage almost 300 rental properties across this market, and we do everything from the leasing and marketing to the tax documentation, working with the tenants, doing the screening process to make sure that when you bring over a property with us, it is a successful situation to the best of its ability. So absolutely ask questions. Remember, cheaper is not always better. And a lot of times you're going to pay twice when you got cheap.
Right.
TJ, I want to ask you this. And you all, the property management, or your company, you all have different, packets or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it? I know some property management companies will do everything, but you may want somebody that may just collect payments or do whatever, so they can kind of customize. Customize something for
So
them.
we've got one. The bulk of our plans, we offer multiple service plans, but the bulk of our plan says we'll take care of full service management, kind of everything you need, right? We also have a plan that says, hey, we'll lease out the property for you, implement a lease for your tenant, and then we'll collect the rents and work orders. And we'll pass all the work orders on to you. You can figure out what you want to do with it. So sometimes we can just be an assistant on the side, and then if you ever decide you want to transition to full service, we can help. So there's always some options available, but come over and ask, and we can always help.
Okay. So I always like to think about the viewers that might be watching this show. You have multiple people and doing different things. So for those people, are there any, just from your individual, backgrounds with what you do, are there any events, any groups, any conferences that you might suggest, let's say to someone that's interested in doing real estate, or someone that's interested in property management, or someone that's just interested, hey, I just need to find out, get some education, what's going on, are there trainings, anything that you want to share with those people that are out there?
So if you're trying to just learn more about the real estate market or in general, and you're trying to invest into real estate, then there are, I would say, go to county meetings to learn about what is going on in the county. You can even go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, just to know what's going on. I mean, is there a new business coming to this area that you're going to make money off those rentals? Just so you can kind of get a feel for the area. If you're trying to get into real estate, I would just join real estate. I'm in Women's Council of Realtors. I learn a lot about the community through Women's Council. So just get involved in the real estate community.
Right. Okay.
I tell you, if you see some ladies like these girls here that are, got the big sticker on their car, I'm a realtor, you may want to pull them over and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this game. What does it really look like? And it's always good to see people who are in it full time to really get that full perspective. But I'd also say, when I first got into real estate, I paid $5,000 to take an investment class and get all this information. And I was like, man, gosh, the next time I want to learn more information, I paid for about 3 books for $40. And there was so much information in those books. So I would tell you, look up some books. If you're brand new to the kind of whole concept, one great book is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's a great book to kind of read and get a little bit of insight on real estate. So, but don't spend too much. Just talk to some local people in the area already, and then get some books and read on it.
I would say the same thing. TJ said, "Have you seen me? You can always walk up to me and ask me, and I'm gonna tell you everything. I'm gonna let you know if you're ready or not." But no, really, like she said, the WCAR, just researching and Googling stuff. Hey, I want to learn real estate in Nashville. Whatever you want to do, I'm pretty sure classes will come up. But you can also if you see one of us or whatever, we'll definitely be able to point you in the right direction.
Well, I mean, it's great to have people that you can just bounce some questions off of, because if that's not something that you do every day, it can be very intimidating, and you're like, well, I'm not sure if I should or if I shouldn't. So I just want to say, definitely, thank you all for coming. I think you gave great advice and kind of share some different perspectives. I want to thank all of our audience, and thank you for joining us with D-ConneXion TV.